thousands of years, a legendary pathway connected east and west.
Across continents, mighty empires rose and fell, each leaving its mark on a road shaped.
And so, our journey begins, following the footsteps of merchants, monks, warriors. Here, at the eastern gate of the Silk Road, rose Chang'an, heart of the Tang Empire and home to 1 million souls. In its great markets, spices, silk, glass, and ideas blended into a vibrant symphony of cultures. Travelers from every corner of the world converged here. Merchants, monks, wanderers, all shaping the life of Chang'an. Life in Chang'an pulsed with energy. Craftsmen, scholars, and travelers moving together in a city where worlds intertwined. From delicate dyes to masterful weaving, Chang'an crafted silk that traveled farther than any army, carrying beauty across continents. When night fell, Chang'an shimmered, its lanterns painting the ancient capital in gold. In the Western market, voices from Persia, Arabia, India, and China mingled, proof that here, within tranquil courtyards, wisdom crossed borders. Buddhists, Taoists, and travelers.
And so the journey began. Caravans leaving Chang'an to follow the winding path westward.
At the edge of the Gobi, Dunhuang rose as a lifeline, an oasis where travelers found safety.
For centuries, armies, monks, merchants, and explorers all passed this very gate.
In Dunhuang's Mogao caves, monks preserved wisdom, painting stories of devotion.
From Dunhuang, travelers pushed west, into storms of sand and silence, trusting their caravans and their will to survive. Stelas and markers around Dunhuang tell stories, names of merchants, monks, and kings who crossed these sands across centuries. Here, sacred texts were translated, preserved, and carried east and west, letting Buddhist wisdom travel with the caravans. At the far western edge of China stood Kashgar, a crossroads where empires, traders, and cultures converged for centuries.
Kashgar's bazaar burst with voices: Persian, Turkish, Chinese, Arabic.
Here, the Han sought the fabled heavenly horses, steeds said to sweat red and carry armies across continents.
Kashgar stood as the great intersection, where Sogdians, Persians, Indians, and Chinese negotiated the flow of goods across continents.
By the late centuries, Kashgar became a chessboard, where British, Russian, and Chinese envoys quietly contested influence in Central Asia.
From Kashgar, caravels pressed westward, towards Samarkand, heart of Sogdian power and Central Asian splendor.
Kashgar's craftsmen forged blades prized from China to Persia, steel shaped by fire, skill, and generations of tradition.
Stories of heroes and journeys filled Kashgar's nights, kept alive.
Under Kashgar's lanterns, the final deals were struck. Silk, jade, and spices changing hands before caravans moved west.
Samarkand, jewel of Central Asia, rose in shimmering blues and golds, welcoming travelers from every horizon.
At Registan, Timurid artistry reached its height. Geometry, color, and poetry carved into stone.
Samarkand's scholars mapped the heavens, charting stars that guided travelers along the endless Silk Road.
From Samarkand's workshops, Sogdian craftsmen shaped wonders, ivory, textiles, and treasures coveted across continents.
Here, spices, silk, and stories changed hands. Samarkand pulsed as the Silk Road's beating commercial heart.
And when night draped Samarkand in silver shadow, its domes glowed like constellations, guiding travelers onward.
Balkh, the mother of cities, once ruled the heart of Asia, where empires rose and vanished like dust on the wind. Here in Balkh, Alexander met Roxanne, the union that bound conqueror and king.
Balkh nurtured prophets and poets. Zoroaster's fire and Rumi's verse both trace their origins to this sacred soil. On the Silk Road, Balkh thrived as a crossroads where merchants traded goods and scholars traded ideas. Faiths converged in Balkh. Temples echoed with prayers from many peoples traveling the vast Silk Road.
Though much has faded, the legacy of Balkh endures. Etched across deserts, Merv, once a jewel of Central Asia, stood as a mighty gateway where caravans crossed the Karakum sands toward Persia and beyond.
Here, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, and Christianity stood side by side, a testament to Merv's vast spiritual tapestry.
At its summit stood El Kekara, an Achaemenid masterpiece that witnessed empires rise.
For centuries, Merv's markets overflowed with life, where merchants from every corner of the Silk Road shared goods and stories alike. Merv's libraries preserved the wisdom of ages, where scholars translated, debated, and safeguarded the knowledge of civilizations.
Yet even great cities fall. Merv's brilliance dimmed.
Ctesiphon, seat of Parthian and Sassanid power, rose proudly beside the Tigris, a beacon of empire and ambition.
For centuries, Ctesiphon governed vast lands, its courts echoing with diplomacy, strategy, and the pulse of empire.
Takhkasra, its mighty arch soaring skyward, stood unmatched, the greatest single-span brick vault of the ancient world.
Between Rome and Persia, Ctesiphon stood as a battleground of wills, a frontier where diplomacy clashed with destiny.
When new powers rose, Ctesiphon adapted, or fell, its walls bearing witness to every shift in the tides of history.
Today, only broken bricks remain, but the spirit of Ctesiphon endures in
Palmyra, the desert's jewel, emerged like a mirage, guiding caravans with the promise of life and prosperity.
Through its monumental colonnades, Palmyra welcomed travelers from Persia, Rome, and the far ends of the Silk Road. At the Temple of Bel, devotion shaped Palmyra's identity, its rituals binding the city to both heaven and earth. Here in Palmyra, commerce flowed like an endless river. Silk, spices, and stories exchanged beneath the blazing sky. Zenobia, Palmyra's desert queen, rose with brilliance and ambition, daring to dream beyond the limits of empires. Though time has worn its stones, Palmyra's legacy endures, etched in every pillar that still reaches toward the desert sky. Through the winding halls of living stone, travelers step toward Petra, the rose-red city carved by time and genius. Here, caravans from distant realms met in harmony, trading incense and treasures that shaped the ancient world.
Petra stands immortal, its stone temples whispering stories of traders, kings, and the desert's eternal breath.
In Damascus, silk found new life, dyed, woven, and reborn in colors worthy of emperors and kings. These caravanserai sheltered countless journeys, where desert dust met distant stories, and trade bridged nations.
For over 4 millennia, Damascus has breathed civilization, an eternal crossroads of faith.
Constantinople was not only a crossroads of continents, it was a treasury of knowledge, where ideas converged like caravans from every horizon.
Here in the great bazaars, east and west intertwined, silk from China, glass.
For centuries, Constantinople stood as the final beacon of the Silk Road, where oceans, empires.
Across deserts, kingdoms, and millennia, the Silk Road shaped humanity, carrying more than goods.
The footsteps of countless travelers echo still. Merchants, monks, explorers, each.
The Silk Road lives on, not just in history, but in every connection we make.